Once upon a time, there was a small village that lived in peace and harmony. Everything was going great for the villagers, until one day, when they were suddenly attacked by a horde of zombies. The villagers had no idea where the zombies had come from, nor did they know why they were attacking them. The villagers quickly realized that they couldn't fight the zombies with their own strength, so they decided to take matters into their own hands. They began to look for ways to protect themselves from the zombie horde. After some research, the villagers came up with the perfect solution: plants. Using their knowledge of botany, the villagers began to cultivate various plants that could be used to fend off the zombies. They planted the plants around the perimeter of their village, and soon the villagers had an impenetrable wall of plants surrounding their home. The villagers were relieved to have the plants in place, but they knew they couldn't rest easy yet. Zombies were still attacking their village, and the villagers had to find a way to defeat them. After some thought, the villagers decided to use a weapon they had never used before: fire. The villagers gathered up all of the wood they could find and set it ablaze. The fire destroyed the zombies, and the villagers were finally able to relax. However, the fire had also destroyed the plants they had so carefully cultivated. The villagers were devastated, but they knew they had to start over. They replanted the plants, and this time, they made sure to use a special type of plant that was resistant to fire. The villagers had finally found a way to protect their village from the zombie horde. From then on, the villagers lived in peace and harmony. The plants they had cultivated kept the zombies at bay, and the villagers were able to live their lives free from the fear of attack. The villagers never forgot the lessons they had learned from their experience with the zombies. They were always mindful of the power of plants, and they never stopped cultivating them. To this day, the villagers still use plants to protect their village from any danger that may come their way. It was a typical day in the small village of Fortin. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and the villagers were busy going about their daily routines. Little did they know, their world was about to be turned upside down. The peaceful village was suddenly attacked by a horde of zombies. They came from all directions, and the villagers were petrified. They had never seen anything like it before. The villagers ran for their lives, but it was no use. The zombies were relentless, and they were quickly overtaken. The village was in ruins, and it seemed like all hope was lost. But then, from the sky, a mysterious figure descended. He was wearing a strange suit of armor, and he was carrying a magical staff. The figure identified himself as a time traveler, and he had come to help the villagers battle the zombies. The time traveler explained that the zombies were actually from different eras. He had been traveling through time, and he had come across them in the past. He had been able to contain them, but now they had broken free and were wreaking havoc on the village. The time traveler knew that the only way to stop them was to go back in time and defeat them in their own era. He offered to take the villagers with him, and they all agreed. The time traveler created a time machine, and the villagers and him jumped in. They traveled to different eras, fighting and defeating the zombies wherever they went. The villagers were amazed at the different places they visited, from the time of the dinosaurs to the distant future. They also learned a lot about the different plants and animals that existed in each era. At last, they reached the era where the zombies had first appeared. The time traveler explained that the zombies had been created by a powerful witch, and that they would only be defeated if the witch was defeated. The villagers and the time traveler ventured to the witch's castle and confronted her. After a long and difficult battle, the witch was defeated and the zombies were destroyed. The villagers were relieved and grateful to the time traveler for his help. He had saved them from certain doom. As a token of their appreciation, they presented him with a magical staff of his own. The time traveler thanked the villagers and said his goodbyes. He promised to come back if they ever needed him, and then he disappeared in a flash of light. The villagers returned to their village and rebuilt it. They vowed to never forget the time traveler and all that he had done for them. The villagers lived happily ever after, and when they looked up at the night sky, they could see the time traveler, still traveling through time, fighting evil wherever he went. The town of Green Shades was a peaceful place, until recently when the plants and zombies began fighting for control. The plants wanted to keep their town peaceful and quiet, while the zombies wanted to take over and turn it into a wild party. The two sides had been fighting for months, but neither could gain an advantage over the other. The town was in a state of chaos, with no end to the fighting in sight. That was until the mayor of Green Shades had an idea. He proposed that the plants and zombies compete in a party competition, the winner of which would gain control of the town. The plants and zombies both agreed to the competition and began preparing for the big day. The plants gathered their most colorful flowers and set up a stage in the town square. They decorated the area with streamers, balloons, and music. The zombies, on the other hand, went all out. They set up a massive stage in the town square and invited all kinds of wild creatures to join in the fun. They even had a zombie band playing their favorite songs. On the day of the competition, the town was packed with people from all over. Everyone was eager to see which side would win the competition. The plants began the festivities with a traditional dance. They moved gracefully and sang beautiful songs. The crowd was mesmerized by their performance and the plants received a standing ovation. The zombies were next to perform. They began their act with a wild and crazy dance. They jumped, spun, and sang their way around the stage. They even brought out a few of their zombie friends to join in the fun. The crowd was in awe. Everyone was mesmerized by the zombies and their performance. Finally, it was time for the judges to decide the winner. After much debate, the judges declared the plants the victors. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. The plants had won the party competition and gained control of green shades. They celebrated their victory with a huge parade. The zombies, however, were not so happy. They had lost the competition and were now forced to live in peace with the plants. The plants and zombies of green shades had finally settled their differences. They agreed to live in peace and harmony and to never fight again. The town of green shades was once again at peace and the party competition was a thing of the past. The plants and zombies had finally found a way to live together without conflict. The plants and zombies of green shades would forever remember the day they came together to compete in the party competition. It was a day that changed their lives forever. It started off as a typical summer day in the neighborhood. The sun was out, the birds were chirping, and the kids were playing in the park. Little did they know, a war was about to break out in their backyards. The plants and the zombies had been eyeing each other for months, a silent rivalry that was about to reach its boiling point. The plants had been slowly encroaching on the zombies' territory, and the zombies had had enough. They were ready to take back the land that was rightfully theirs. The plants had the upper hand in numbers, but the zombies had the advantage in strength and experience. They had been living in the neighborhood for years, and they knew the land like the back of their hands. They had also been stockpiling weapons and resources in anticipation of a fight. The war began in the early morning hours, when the sun was just starting to peek over the horizon. The plants and zombies charged at each other, weapons drawn and ready for battle. The plants used their vines to try and restrain the zombies, while the zombies used their fists to try and pummel the plants. The battle raged on for hours, neither side willing to back down. The plants used their superior numbers to overwhelm the zombies, while the zombies used their superior strength to take out the plants. In the end, both sides were left exhausted and battered. But the war was far from over. The plants and zombies continued to fight throughout the day, and by nightfall both sides had sustained heavy losses. The plants had lost most of their numbers, and the zombies had lost much of their strength. In the end, the plants emerged victorious. They had managed to reclaim the land that the zombies had taken, and they had also managed to drive the zombies out of the neighborhood for good. The plants celebrated their victory with a great feast, and the kids in the park cheered for their newfound heroes. The war between the plants and the zombies was over, but the memory of it would live on in the hearts and minds of the neighborhood for years to come. The kids would tell stories of the brave plants who defended their home, and the zombies who tried to take it away. The plants and zombies had fought a long and hard battle, but in the end, they had both learned an important lesson. That no matter how different they were, they could still find a way to live peacefully together. Plant vs Zombies Garden Warfare. The neighborhood was peaceful and quiet, the birds chirping and the sun shining. But all that changed when the plants and zombies arrived. The two sides had been fighting over the land for months, and it was becoming clear that neither was willing to back down. The plants had been there first, and the zombies had invaded their land. The plants were determined to take back what was rightfully theirs, and the zombies had no intention of leaving without a fight. The war had been raging for months, and it seemed that neither side was going to give in. There had been several skirmishes, but neither side had been able to gain any ground. The plants were led by a powerful sunflower, named Sunny, and the zombies by a powerful yet mysterious leader known only as Dr. Zomboss. Both sides had powerful weapons and strategies, but neither had been able to gain any real advantage. That was until one day when the plants made a daring move. They had managed to get their hands on some powerful technology that allowed them to create powerful plant-based weapons. They used these weapons to launch an attack on the zombies, and it seemed to be working. The zombies were caught off guard and started to retreat. However, Dr. Zomboss had one last trick up his sleeve. He had created a powerful robot called the Zombot that was capable of taking on the plants and their weapons. The battle raged on for days, but eventually, the plants managed to defeat the Zombot and the zombies were forced to retreat. The plants had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The plants were determined to take back the land that was rightfully theirs, and the zombies determined to make sure that didn't happen. The war continued for months on end, with neither side gaining any real advantage. Finally, after months of fighting, the plants had managed to gain the upper hand. They had created powerful weapons and strategies that allowed them to gain ground against the zombies. Eventually, after months of fighting, the plants had managed to defeat the zombies and take back their land. The war was finally over, and the plants had won. The plants celebrated their victory, and the people of the neighborhood were relieved that the war was finally over. They were thankful that the plants had managed to take back their land and restore peace to the neighborhood. The plants and zombies had fought a hard-fought battle, and it had been a long and difficult war. In the end, the plants had emerged victorious, and the people of the neighborhood could finally live in peace.